This group was founded by Ken H., a longtime member of the Pacific Group who relocated to Prescott, Arizona in the late 1987. Ken started his speaker meeting as a satellite part of the Pacific Group, maintained the structure with very few changes over 30 years. To begin, I would like to invite everyone in the audience who's ever had a commitment here, regardless of how small or for how long, please stand up and be recognized. Show that humility, stop and stand. Anybody who's ever had a commitment at this meeting throughout the course of this 30 years, large or small, if you've done anything, you may be the only example of this group of service work. Stand. Okay, thank you. So Mike wrote this list out. He wants me to point to each one of you and tell us what you did. Please stay standing. And I'm going to start pointing you, starting off to my right.
Oh, my name's Kurt. Oh.
Hey, Kurt.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I'm an alcoholic, and I was booking the speakers for a long time, and then I was booking the speakers and being the recording guy for a long time, and I guess that's about it. And I started the YouTube channel for the early group and the other two groups. And anyway, that's all I got.
Thanks, Kurt. My name's Lucy. I'm an alcoholic. Mike Bennett is convinced that I was a secretary. I don't remember anything about it. And I know it's on the list. So.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.
My name's Randy. I'm an alcoholic.
Randy. Thanks, Randy.
Hey guys, I'm Ozzy. I'm an alcoholic.
Ozzy.
I am the acting GSR.
That's the best damn beer to this meeting I ever saw.
Steve H., alcoholic. I was the intergroup rep for a little while, and then they found somebody who was actually a home group member to take over.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. I'm Amelia. I'm an alcoholic. I was the water boy. He's got like a man as a cake lady and a woman as a water boy. And then I graduated on to coffee maker, and I'm thankful for that. And that's it. Thanks, Steve. Laura Curtis, I'm an alcoholic. Curtis. I was the treasurer, and I'm currently the secretary.
Laura.
Laura Alcoholic, I was saying tear down. And alcoholic, I'm Mitch Schumacher. Nay, alcoholic.
What am I doing up here?
Past secretaries only.
The alcoholic guy, the tear-down guy, and
Thanks.
cigarette butt guy.
I'm Brady. I'm an alcoholic. I'm the early group, intergroup representative.
Thanks, Brady.
You were also a bell ringer.
Yes, I was.
Yay, bell ringers!
My name's Chris. I'm an alcoholic. I'm the current cipher.
I graduated.
Speaker guy.
Hi, Cody.
Scott, alcoholic. I'm current starter of the horn guy. That's all people in the fight.
The honker.
My name is Bob. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Bob.
I'm the setup master.
I'm a grateful spring alcoholic. I'm the new breeder.
Lady with the red cup.
Leon alcoholic.
Ben alcoholic. I'm
Ben.
a literature guy.
Literature.
Hey, Ben.
Cameron alcoholic. I'm the 29th secretary.
Here, Joe. Joe. You're standing. Why? Let me see if you're not have a commitment, please. Roll call.
I'm Mike and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Mike.
And, I just volunteered to also take that direction.
Thanks, Mike.
Hi, I'm Dick. My first job was cake making. Then I was treasury for a couple of years, and then one time when I was secretary for you.
Thanks, Dick.
I'm Mickey and I'm an alcoholic. I did chips, speakers, and secretary for a couple years.
Is anybody who's standing right now at a commitment that I haven't called on? If not, please take a seat.
My name's Mike Bennett, I'm an alcoholic. I've been the butt man, I've been the greeter, I've been the coffee maker, I've been the treasurer, I've been the GSR, I have been the secretary in 95, in 1999, and in 2005. So I was really secretary for 2.5 times, because this is the only meeting in the history of AA that impeached a secretary. So I finished her term. It was not Lucy.
That was Melrose.
Thank you all for the decades of service to this group. Let's give everybody a round of applause. I have been instructed at this time to introduce our past and present secretaries in chronological order. 1992, Ken Anderson started this meeting. Ken Anderson came from, he had moved out here 5 years previous. He had come from my home group, the Civic Group, and he had brought what he thought was a good idea. And it seemed to be working for a little while. And he brought the structure and the happiness, enthusiasm, and a little pocket of service work. And when he moved away from our home group in 1987, I got sober, and he gave my sponsor his very first legal job, which then gave my sponsor the ability not to end up in jail or prison for pulling guns on people, because that's how he was making money. And as a result, he stayed sober, was able to help me, so Ken helped me indirectly in that way, and he came back for a few years when he first moved out to take gigs, and we missed him. And, our second secretary of this meeting was in 1993, a man by the name of Charlie L., who currently is not here, correct?
He is in town, but he's homesick.
He has the Rona. Okay, and then in 1994, Guy V became secretary, and he is,
Sierra Vista, last we heard.
and then somehow or other, there was like nobody else to do the job, so they found the last remaining soul, Mike B, to be the secretary.
Ken Henderson became my sponsor when I first moved to Prescott, and the first thing he did when I joined the Rarity Group was he started grooming me for secretary. And the first opening was in, what year was it? 95. And he taught me what it was like to be part of a home group. And he carried that Pacific Group message to Prescott, and he introduced it to me, and it's been the funnest part of in all of the service I've done in my sobriety. Funnest part has been here at the Rarity Group. Thank you.
That was good, Mike. Thanks, Mike. After Mike, we had a little more class, and Dick H became the secretary.
He just wants you to keep getting up and down there.
Cameron, Curtis, come up to the front, sit at this table. We have places for you.
This is everyone.
Cameron.
This
Cameron, Curtis, get up here.
I don't want to say it's been a long time since I was secretary, but when they asked me when it was, I didn't even know what year it was. So we picked a year at random. I think it was 96, and that would put me right on the wrong side of my. But I managed to bail the place out anyway. And it was a really fun time, and about a quarter of the number of people that are here tonight would be a big crowd for us at that time. And everybody had a big story to talk about, and it was really an enjoyable thing. Everybody knew everybody, and maybe too much about everybody. But it was really an enjoyable meeting. Someplace fell off the rails for a while, but it looks like it's coming back right now. And I'm glad I was a member of that meeting.
This is a point where it's okay for everybody to clap.
Then we had Aisha as secretary in 1997, and she's not with us.
No, she passed away. She was our Egyptian secretary.
Yes. And we had another five-member of Alcoholics Anonymous also pass away after her, Jim Nugent, in 1998. For some reason, people didn't have enough pain, and they elected Mike B. again as secretary. Do I have to reach back up here?
No.
Good, thank God. Okay. And then after Mike, we had a little class with Lisa C., who's not here.
She's on a cruise ship off the coast of South Florida.
Catching corona.
After Lisa on a cruise, we had Tom McSee, who is here.
Well, he is
He was
working
here.
and he will be here momentarily if he's not shown up yet.
He's here in mind and spirit. And then after Tom, in 2002, Darren D. was the next secretary, who is,
Homesick.
a lot of people are homesick tonight. Marty, rest in peace, was the next secretary in 2003. Correct?
Yep.
We have a picture of him somewhere here.
On the back picture.
Mike took a picture of him and put it on the back wall, great man. After him in 2004, I have a marker that Mark P. is here. Mark P., come to the front. Mark P.
Get up here, Mark.
Mark P, come
Come on up, please.
Get up here, Mark.
My name is Mark, I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Mark. Yes, 2004.
I did the breeder for a year, coffee maker for a year. Cigarette butt, Bill over here.
Use the mic, use the mic.
What? That's all I got, thank you.
So after Mark in 2005, Mike, gosh, this is, I think, when they finally vetoed him out. Mike B. was again secretary. I mean, it was a hard year. In 2006, there was a man named Jailbird Bob who was the secretary. He's not here tonight. His real name is probably just Bob, but he gave him a nickname and put it on the list. Why is he Jailhouse Bob? Jailbird Bob.
Came out of prison and we elected him secretary.
So when you come out of prison, you're getting that nickname apparently.
If he'd have robbed banks, we'd elected him treasurer.
After Bob,
He's in Nebraska.
oh, Beth Ann was secretary. That's amazing. She's not here tonight. Beth Ann was secretary in 2007, great lady. After Beth Ann, Bruce S. was secretary, who also is probably on a cruise or.
No, it was Beth
They
Ann's
both
husband.
passed away,
Oh, Bruce.
Both of
husband
them.
and wife.
I didn't know that.
Bruce and Beth Ann Smith.
Okay, well, this is them. Mary Ellen was the secretary,
Don't know who
and
that
he
is.
has no idea anything about her. After her was Darlene L. Darlene L. was in 2010.
Passed away.
Passed away. And Jim Morris was also secretary,
Right. Passed away.
also passed away.
This group isn't good for the health.
Now, this is the only anniversary meeting I've heard. Most of the old owners have passed away. Most of them have passed away sober, correct?
All sober.
Which is the goal of the,
All
at
sober.
the end of the trip here. That's the goal. Then Joni S. was, 2012.
Joni and Mickey owned this building together. They were the first
Yeah,
people
they
who
were
bought
the
this
first people
building.
here. And I can guarantee you this, Lucy is here, not passed away, and she's sitting.
All right,
since
Lucy.
2013.
Personality before principle.
This is really difficult for me, and wearing the sash and everything, and God damn it, I told you I wasn't the secretary, but you're so adamant about me being here. I've taken a few chips at this meeting, I haven't been sick.
You spoke though, you
Yeah.
spoke here at this meeting.
Oh, I spoke at this
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
Mike says you're secretary.
I guess so, yeah, he's got a couple weeks more than me, so he really drives that home, so happy birthday.
So after Lucy's non-existent secretaryship,
No, he's here. He just walked in. Everybody welcome Tom.
Hey, Tom.
I know, isn't that great?
we were telling him because Tom became secretary again in 2014, and he drove all the way up here from somewhere.
He's been surveyed.
That must have been a long way.
Tom, you're at the podium. Yeah, you're gonna introduce yourself and tell them when you were secretary.
The main speaker, surprise!
I would freak him out.
He's a happy individual. Well, that's his demeanor.
Just to say yes, because I don't know, it's a lot of work.
Does he get one of these little sessions?
All right. Introduce yourself, buddy.
My name's Tom.
Oh, no, that's all right.
Hi, Tom.
Y'all were waiting secretary.
Okay, your time's up, thank you.
Well, I was secretary in 2001 and 2014. I used to record the speakers for a long time. I was treasurer for, I don't know, 5 years or so. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We all have to wear our sash.
Okay.
They need sashes. They need sashes.
So then Mike, how is this, oh, Mike D, thank God. Mike D was secretary in 2015, and he's not here.
I don't know who that
He's in
was.
Colorado.
Colorado.
Corona.
Colorado. So we were losing interest in this group at this time, and we got stuck with a repeat offender Mickey for 2016 and 2017.
Atta girl.
I'm Mickey, I'm an alcoholic.
I'm Mickey.
Tom was actually doing the speakers. No, your brother was doing the recording, and you were the treasurer when I was, or, yeah, you were the treasurer when I was the secretary. So, I'm going with it. No, really, it was great. I moved to Prescott from California, and my sponsor said, if you want to get connected, get into service. And so I got the secretary commitment here, and then I couldn't give it away. So, so then I told Patrick, who is also passed, who's after me, I'm going to take over Oscar's job for a minute. Patrick cares? No, thank you. But I just pawned it off on him, and then he had to do it. So.
Yeah, Mickey failed to mention that she's the only Prescottonian who had to go to rehab in California. It makes it sound like she's from California, but she's from Prescott, and she went there to run away from Prescott. And came back to Prescott and the states over here.
Because California does AA right.
Just you want her opinions, go see her after the meeting. Patrick H. was in secretary. He passed away recently. He's a nice man. 2 times he was secretary. And then in 2020, Cameron became secretary, who is currently here.
Put it on.
Hi, everybody, my name's Cameron, I'm an alcoholic. You know, I was listening to all these things I've been saying, I haven't been able to think of one nice thing to say about Mike Bennett. You know, when I was secretary, I showed up, it happened to be a business meeting, and I didn't really want to have the secretary position, but I remember I got voted in, and I saw it made Mike really angry, so I decided to keep it. And lo and behold, I ended up asking the man to be my sponsor too, reluctantly. So, yeah, I think we're going to be of service.
Okay, here comes the moment we've all been waiting for. the last one, Curtis.
Curtis.
Who's our president? Curtis is the current secretary. I want to thank everyone for letting me be of service. Introducing Curtis. He'll begin the regular meeting of the Rarely Group.
Who's in charge of these sessions?
Curtis, non-alcoholic?
Curtis!
Yeah, I started being secretary, beginning this year, so. But it's been fun so far, I love the. Yeah, this was one of the first meetings I started regularly coming to when I moved here too in 2016. So I've been involved with it since then. I was treasurer for a little while. Still involved with it. I really like it a lot.
All right, Curtis.
Good signs.
Who was supposed to do all this?
I did. Lucy,
You got no sign.
where's my sign? Did somebody put the sign on already? Where's our sign at?
I think I was supposed to set that up.
Try by myself.
Okay, we'll just start the meeting now. Regular meeting. Okay, welcome to the Rarely Group Open Speakers meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Curtis, and I'm an alcoholic. Are there any other alcoholics here? If so, please raise your hands. Cool, welcome. Okay, let's say this serenity prayer again. God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Are there any alcoholics here with less than 30 days sober? If so, please stand up and introduce yourself so we can get to know you and hold applause until everyone has said.
Look at, there's a guy.
Hey, we got a
right there.
hand up. Curtis.
Who are you?
My name's Chris, and I'm an alcoholic.
Chris.
I've been sober for 5 days.
He's gonna be the next secretary.
Well, it's not the recording. I'm an alcoholic. I've also been sober for 5 days.
Yay!
I'm Remy, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Randy.
Anybody else? All right, welcome back. Would all those who are willing to be a sponsor, please raise your hand. Cool. Any sponsors see any one of these people? Are there any out-of-town visitors who are not in treatment that would like to introduce themselves?
My name's Ronnie, I'm from Cape Town, South Africa, I'm an alcoholic.
Remy, alcoholic from California.
Yeah, welcome. Do we have any AA announcements?
I'm Ozzy, I'm an alcoholic.
Ozzy.
As your acting secretary for Sub-District 14140, there is an upcoming GSR workshop.
You said secretary. You said as your acting secretary.
Mike.
GSR.
This is real business. Alright, anyways, there's a GSR workshop coming up February 2nd at 6:30 on Wednesday. If you want to learn what a DCM and DCMC is, if you want to learn about a district or sub-district, or if you want to learn just in general how our service operates, please get together with me after the meeting. All AA members are welcome. You do not have to be at GSR to attend our workshop. It'll be great, fun, and a learning experience. Stay open-minded. Thank you.
I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Randall. ASCII-Pot is the Arizona State Conference for Young People and Alcoholics Anonymous, young at heart, not of age. We are hosting a Valentine's Day fellowship event on February 12th. It is, and there's going to be a relationship panel, from 2 to 3, and speed fellowship and games afterwards. Yeah, it's going to be here on the 12th.
Thanks, Kendall.
I'm Dan, I'm an alcoholic.
Amen.
And, the Friday night speaker meeting in Prescott Valley on March 4th, Friday, we'll have Sober Mardi Gras, which is a potluck at 6, and then the regular speaker meeting at 7. We've had that quite a few years. We didn't have it last year because of COVID, but we're getting back into it. So potluck, March 4th.
Thanks,
Dan.
Who's the alcoholic?
Lucy.
On Mondays and Wednesdays, there's a new noon meeting downstairs from here. And it, after Principles Before Your Personality got shut down from Corona, this is a new meeting that's kind of in the same line. It's a closed meeting for alcoholics, and crosstalk and cussing is encouraged. Thank you.
Oscar Alcoholic.
Oscar.
The last weekend of August, we have the Prescott Shoestring Roundup happening at the Prescott Resort. Not only are you all invited cordially, however, we also invite you to get involved in the Prescott Shoestring Roundup. We have a lot of commitments that are currently open. More than half have been filled, and some very choice commitments that will make you feel good about yourself afterwards are available free of charge.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thanks, Oscar.
Anybody else? Okay, out of respect for our speaker, this group requests that you turn off your phones and stay seated during our speaker, and also no vaping in the meeting. Go outside if you need a vape.
Because it's stupid.
Autumn, can you come up and read how it works?
I'm Autumn, and I'm Claudia. Rarely have I seen a person fail to restore they followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not continue to give themselves to a simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves.
Really good so far. Thank you.
They are not at fault, they seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. At some of these we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power, that one is God, may you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, self-do prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as we go through steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And many of us exclaimed, what an order, I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description to the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after. We declared 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power to overcome our alcoholism. And C, that God.
Tradition which takes every AA group out of fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. $1 does not go as far as it used to, so please give 2 or more. You can afford it. This money goes to pay for rent, chips, coffee, and literature. Now I'd like to introduce our chip person, Anna.
I'm an alcoholic. Yeah. They're rarely groups we love to get chips away. Anybody need a 24-hour chip first day or days of sobriety? Micah.
My name is Micah, and I am definitely an alcoholic.
Anybody else for a 24-hour chip?
Mine is money, come on.
Everybody New York.
Chris.
All right, any more? 24 hours. 30 days, 1 month. 30 days, 1 month. 2 months.
I'm Jordan.
Anybody else in 2 months? Yep. Oh, there we go.
Seth, alcoholic.
That's it for, what was that, 2? 3 months. Right on, Matt, good job. Anybody else for 3 months? 6 months. Oh, there you Tell everybody your name.
Heather, alcoholic.
Anybody else for 6 months?
What's going on over there?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else 6 months? 9 months?
Oscar, all right.
Does he stumble?
1 year.
Just in case.
Any 1 year? Any 2 through 29?
Well, that ends it for the night.
Celebrate my birthday in December is the 26th of December.
Get out of here.
Okay, we got to sing.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bennett. Happy birthday to you.
Two for 29. Anybody else? All right, do we have any 30-plus birthdays?
No, I just shared it with him. I've gotten too much attention already.
Okay. Really? For real?
Hold on, my candle's done. Okay.
Happy birthday to you.
Stop.
Happy birthday, dear Happy birthday to you.
Use the sash. Use the sash.
Okay, so we also celebrate birthdays on the last Thursday of the month, which is tonight. Normally it looks a little different than this, but if you want to celebrate your birthday here, just see our cake lady, who is Carrie, and she'll have a cake for you on the last birthday of the month. So we are celebrating birthdays tonight. We just celebrated a couple.
Now where you're at?
Okay, thank you.
Today is Thursday. So, okay, Brad, can you come up and read 12 traditions?
Yeah. Excuse me.
My name's Brad, I'm an alcoholic. 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself. In our group conscience, our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA names any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain our personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before our personalities.
Okay, if you'd like to be a member, or if you are a member and would like to have a commitment here, please see Mike Bennett after the meeting. He is our commitment chairperson. Please remember to keep your phones off and stay seated during our speaker. Now help me enthusiastically welcome our speaker, Mike Bennett.
You only got 15 minutes, Mike.
I know. You know what's fun? My name's Mike Bennett, I'm an alcoholic. What's fun is we lost our sign, and we finally found it, and I was so excited about it, and then I thought, I wonder if we lost our stop sign, to make the speaker stop talking, and you don't have it, do you, Chris?
Oh my gosh.
Huh?
I usually keep it in the book in front of you.
So if I have possession of it, then I can pretty much talk as long as I want. So I'm gonna let you have this, since you're sitting up front. That way you can- Anyways, I want to introduce a couple of people. First off, the man who traveled the furthest to help celebrate the group's anniversary and my birthday party is a very, very good friend of mine for a lot of years, is Jacob, and he introduced himself as a visitor. He drove all the way out here from Iowa. My lovely wife, which a lot of people aren't sure I even have a wife for a long time, but my lovely wife, Shelley, is the one who refused to come to the podium, which I thought was so funny, but raise your hand, Shelley, so everybody knows And she is the one who got that cake, which I don't know why we're not eating that cake. Why are we not eating that cake? Cake lady, we can cut that cake up if you girls want. Or do you want to, I don't know, whatever you girls want to do, do it. So, anyway, Shelley and I have been married for 22 years of my sobriety. And I'm very happy.
He needs an award. He needs an award.
You know, I have always felt she was lucky to have me.
You guys drive separately?
So, you know, somebody said to me earlier today, man, I would have liked to known you back in your drinking days. Funny thing is, there are two men here today that actually, the two men that I've known the longest of anybody else in the world are present today to help me celebrate my birthday. And Mark is standing in the back with the cowboy hat on. Tim, put your hat on, Tim, so people can see you. Tim is the other cowboy that came to see me from Tucson. So these are almost the only people left alive that drank with me back in the young days when we were kids. Mark's dad owned a ranch down by Mayer, and when I was a dumb little kid, they took me in and taught me something about a horse and cows. I grew up in South Phoenix, and I was in foster care, in and out of the system, and I didn't know anything about animals. The only horse or cow I'd ever seen was on TV, and his family helped me learn to be a cowboy, and we've had a long, good friendship. I think we've known each other for 45 years now, almost 45 years. And I met Tim a couple of years later. We actually cowboyed together too, and I've known him about 41 or 42 years. And those boys and I, we ran around a lot together. So after the meeting, you guys feel free to talk to them. I didn't want you to have any ammunition before the meeting. Two of my dearest friends. And I'd like to thank everybody that I sponsor. You know, it's very important. And Dick, thank you for years of help and sponsorship. And I want to thank my first sponsor, Mickey. If you look at the board back there that my wife put together, the man on the bottom with his kind of profile, he was my first sponsor, Mickey Weatherby, and he saved my life. I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous thinking that maybe I was not an alcoholic. I wasn't sure. And that was the man that helped me understand that I was an alcoholic, and I was happy about that because I thought there was so much more wrong with me. I was so glad to find out I was only not, I was just an alcoholic, and he really taught me about AA and the steps, and he really did save my life. One day I was driving down by Prescott Valley, and I realized the impact that he really had in my life. And Mike, you'll love this story. I'm just driving down the road, and I'm thinking about what would have happened if that man wouldn't have walked up to me in that parking lot and asked me if I had a sponsor and offered to help me. And it brought me to tears, and I was crying driving down the road because I realized how important, how serious that was. The other person I want to introduce is my lovely daughter, Jennifer, right up front. Right. Jennifer, raise your hand, Jennifer. And next to her is my rotten granddaughter, Riley. Last year, Riley was sentenced to a few meetings with her granddaddy, so she got to come to the Rotary Group for a few weeks, and she met some really great friends. But she's not really a bad girl. She just got caught smuggling vodka into school and water. She is her granddaddy's baby, I'll tell you that. She may visit us more later. I don't know. Anyways, fun to have you guys here, and a very special day for me, and special to have all my friends and people here. But I was gonna say something about sponsorship. Mickey was my first sponsor. When I was 2 years sober, I got sober up in Washington State because I was trying to dodge alimony and child support. So I made a geographic from here to not pay Jennifer's mother the money I owed her. And I got up there, and a few years later, I got sober. I didn't mean to get sober, but I got sober. And then Mickey made me start paying all that money back, which I finally did get caught up. But at 2 years sober, we were talking about my amends, the amends part. You know, that thing is like really right there, isn't it? I just noticed it. Can you guys see me over? What?
I think that's just fine.
How about that? Anyways, so I was at my amends, and Mickey said to me, he said, "What about your daughter in Arizona?" And I said, "Well, I call her every week. I would send, on any holiday, I would send presents down here to Arizona, and her mother, who was wonderful, would make her wait to open them until I called. And I'd get her on the phone, and we'd open Christmas presents, birthday presents, you know, any kind of present. And I said, well, I talk to her every week. In the summertime, I go get her and bring her up to Washington. She stays with me. He said, yeah, but don't you think you should be present in her life? And we started talking about that. And after a few months of trying to work out the details, I got a job down here, and I moved back home to Prescott here, and so I could be in her life. And I don't regret that for a second. It's been so much fun to have had that time with her. And now I have that time with all our grandchildren. Shelley and I have 9 grandchildren now, but Bridie's my favorite. And anyway, so Mickey helped me, and then he told me, when you get down to Arizona, you need to get a sponsor there. And I said, I don't want to get a sponsor there. You are a good sponsor, and I'm just fine having you. He said, I don't really give a damn what you want to do, because nobody really gives a crap about what your opinion is. So you go down there and you get a sponsor that's local, because I want somebody who can look at you across the table and make sure you're going to meetings and that you're active. And when you get there, Greg was talking about, I'm always active and talking to people in meetings and shaking hands with them. He said, when you get there, I don't want you to go to Arizona and sit around waiting for everybody to come think, oh wow, here's a new guy in town, let's welcome him. Don't wait for that. You walk around every room you go to, you walk around and introduce yourself to every single person in that room, and you say, my name's Mike Bennett, and I'm now calling, I just moved here from Washington State. Don't you wait for them and get a resentment because they don't welcome you. You go introduce yourself. So I came to Prescott and I did that. Went to a meeting. Jimmy was probably in that meeting. Him and I came to the town at the same time, but I walked around, I introduced myself. I said, just what my sponsor told me to do. My name's Mike Bennett. I'm an alcoholic. I just moved here from Washington. And before long, I knew everybody in the room. And everybody in the room knew me. And I did that in every meeting I went to. And I did that in every, that's okay back there. Would you like it?
I like it there.
I'm gonna put it right here. He's not a very nice person. I don't like him except 2 months out of the year. And we're in those 2 months right now. That's why I'm, he's here. So he is 30 years sober. But so am I. But in March, if he doesn't screw it up, he'll become 31 years sober, and then I am not going to like him again until this time next year. We have a 2-month block of time that he's a decent person. The rest of the time, he's a crackhead, to me. And his wife's even worse because she's sober longer than him. And I go to their meeting and they treat me badly and call me newcomer. And they tell me where I have to sit and they make me make coffee. And they don't know how to treat new people. Anyway, so he said you get a local sponsor. Well, some of you have heard of Clancy, I'm sure. Oscar mentioned him a few minutes ago, but for those of you who don't know Clancy or don't know who he is, I would encourage you to get on YouTube and just type in Clancy, AA speaker, and listen to him. I think he's the most wonderful speaker ever in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. I really believe that. Him and his sponsor, Chuck Chandler. Chuck, see, both of them gone now. Clancy died a couple years ago. But Mickey was friends with Clancy, and he introduced me to him early on in my sobriety up in Washington. When I got down here, I was talking to people at the Rarity Group. I came to this group, and it was 2 years old. There were like maybe 15 people or 20 people in the meeting. That was the whole meeting. And that was not just the home group members. That was everybody that attended. They had a speaker each week. And so I was in that meeting. I introduced myself to everybody, and I said, when I introduced myself to Ken, he was very nice to me, and a lot of you guys knew Ken Henderson. He was a wonderful man. And later, Ken said in a talk that he gave that Clancy was his sponsor. And when he did, I just had to have him as my sponsor because I knew that lineage of sponsorship. And so I asked him to be my sponsor, and he was my sponsor for 8 years. And then Dick became my sponsor for a couple of years, and then I moved out of town in '05, and I lived back in Alabama Alabama and Mississippi for 12 years. And I know I don't have an accent, so you can't tell I live back there, but when somebody from Alabama calls me, I immediately just resort right back to it, because I lived there so long, and Shelley will say, Jesus, I wish those people would call me. And Mary Russell will call and say, hey, Mike Bennett, how you? And I say, I'm fine, Mary, how you? And Shelley will walk by and shake her head, and I take her to the grocery store now, and I say, hey baby, get buggy. That's what they call a shopping cart now, get buggy. So we get buggy and we go shopping. Anyway, so I lived in Alabama for 12 years, and then I came back to Prescott about 4 years ago, and Rick, I don't know where he is, he's here somewhere, where is he? Huh? He took the dog home?
Wow.
What?
Dog's more important.
Right?
Took the
Dog home. Anyway, I bumped into Rick in Fry's, and he said, you know, all the old timers in the Rarity group died. Literally, like they died. Few people moved away, but most of them died, and the Rarity group just didn't have the same, you know, the what we have right here. Didn't have. He said, get back involved in the Rarity group, and I couldn't immediately because I had a job here that just wouldn't allow me to. The only meetings I could go to at 6 o'clock in the morning. But anyways, I got involved in this group a couple years ago, and boy, it's been so much fun being part of it. Cameron's done such a great job, and Curtis, and yeah, you can clap for him if you want. They resisted just a little bit starting to wear a coat and tie when we led the meeting, but it has caught on a little bit. But that's the way we were raised. We were raised to be respectful and treat AA that way, and so when we're at a podium, you know, it's important that we put a coat and tie on and make a big deal out of it. Because think about it. If you're not willing to make a big deal out of your sobriety, what in the hell are you willing to make a big deal out of? Really, think about it. When I was a kid, I didn't really have, everybody says, I tell them I grew up in foster care and that I was in and out of the system, and a lot of people come up to me and they'll say, oh, poor Mike, you know, it's so rough. You know, it wasn't rough at all. I was down in South Phoenix. I had never lived anywhere else to compare it to, and all it was a childhood. It was nothing more than that. My brother and I, we just lived there, and we went to school, and we did things, and kids get in fights, and, you know, down there, it was pretty normal for the parents to get in trouble, and CPS to be involved, and we'd be in somebody's house, and sometimes we'd get in trouble, and we'd be in the state home, and then my brother got shipped away to the boys' ranch a couple of times for 6 or 9 months at a time, and it was just the way life was, but everybody we knew down there was living the same life. So there was nothing to look at and say, our life was so bad. It was just normal. It's what it was. And then when I moved up here, I went into permanent foster care. And then I learned to be a cowboy. And that was just normal after a while because that's what you do when you're around people. You just adjust and you adapt. And so I really had a great childhood. But when I was about 9 years old, and welcome to the new people, by the way, that took the chips. And I know if you're new and you haven't seen something, it's probably the stupidest thing you've ever seen to celebrate an old dude in an old meeting, because what does it really mean to be sober for a long time? I felt that way. My first meeting was something like this, but it was a birthday meeting. The last Sunday of every month, everybody in the entire city, and like our Tri-Cities, it was the same thing. And the whole Tri-City area up there would show up at the club, and all it was a celebration of birthdays. And it would take up the whole hour, just the birthday celebration. And people dressed up, the men had coats and ties on, and the women wore dresses, and there were balloons and gifts, and that was my first meeting, and I thought it was the strangest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And the guy said to me that got me some coffee while I was there, he said, well, come back here tomorrow, and I'll meet you here, and we'll have a regular AA meeting. And I came back that day, and I had the hardest time identifying with alcoholism for this reason. I started drinking, well, I started huffing paint. When I was pretty young. It was not my fault. This kid walked up on the playground when I was about 9, and he put this sock in my face and said, here, sniff this, you know. And I thought, well, I don't want to sniff your sock, you know. So, but, you know, kids are, so I had to, so I sniffed it. And it turned out to be paint, so I started huffing paint a little bit, and I didn't even know what that was, but the principal got tired of it and threw me out of school for a little while, and then I started smoking a little weed with the kids, but that's all they were doing, and we were just little kids, 9, 10 years old. But about 11 years old, I wound up drinking a little bit, and I'd like to say, like so many people, I took my first drink and went into a blackout and got married and, you know, traveled the world and whatever. And it didn't happen like that. I just took a few drinks and it didn't really seem to do anything for me. It tasted terrible and, you know, nothing really happened. But for some reason, I kept trying to do it every opportunity I had because I wanted to be a grown-up. I wanted to be like the big guys, and that's what they were doing. So I kept drinking. And one day, everything came together, and it was absolutely perfect. And it was the most amazing experience I'd ever had because my life had never felt absolutely perfect, not emotionally. Sometimes things would line up physically and they would look right, but emotionally, I was always a little bit off. I always felt like you guys had the answers to life, and I just didn't understand. I didn't even know the question. And when I drank, instead of me feeling like I had to measure up to you, all of a sudden you had to measure up to me. That's how good I felt about me. Best example I can tell is a story Clancy used to tell. He used to talk about the Wizard of Oz, and many of you have heard me tell the story. But alcoholism is like being, is there anybody in here that has never seen the Wizard of Oz? Anybody? Okay, so everybody's seen the story. So imagine alcoholism like this. I am sober, trying to figure out my way around life, and it's like being in Kansas. And you got the dump dog, and the wind's blowing, and it's dusty, and there's tornadoes and stuff, and it's just dull. That's what life was like when I didn't drink. It was just dull. And then all of a sudden, I took a couple of drinks. Bam, Technicolor. It was just fantastic. There were like yellow brick roads and flying monkeys and talking tin men and lions and whatever else they did. And it was just fantastic. So there was a wicked witch once in a while. Who gave a shit? Here was because Technicolor, excitement, fun. That's what drinking was like for me. And then after a while, I drink too much. And well-meaning people like Jennifer's mother, a wonderful lady, said to me, "You don't stop drinking, you're going to be single because I'm not going to stay married to you. You know, you're a bum when you drink. I'm not going to stay married to you." So I quit drinking one time. She was going to leave me, and so I stopped drinking. And I stayed sober. I used to stay for a year. I don't know how long, but I stayed sober for a while. 6 months, 9 months, something. And then one night we're at this fireman's ball with her family, and there's some guys drinking at the bar. And I've been sober for a while. I've been a good boy. I haven't done anything wrong. Everybody's proud of me. But I am standing on this end of the room, and I'm watching the boys on that end of the room, and they're having fun. There's the clinking sound of glasses, there's laughter down there, there's neon lights, and there's music. And I'm stuck over here where it's in Kansas, black and white and dull and dusty. So eventually, I just made my way over there and decided one drink wouldn't hurt. Next thing I know, we're outside flipping over a Volkswagen. We got it upside down, and then we got it spinning like a top. And then the cops showed up. And again, well-meaning people told me my problem was drinking. And if I stopped drinking, my life would get better. Well, obviously, you get in enough trouble, that starts to make a little bit of sense, and you want the heat off, so I'd stop drinking again. And after a while of stopping drinking, it'd be the same thing. In the beginning, it was okay because I'd start sleeping. I'd eat a little bit and start going to work and being responsible, and everybody'd get off my ass. And I'd start feeling like, well, maybe they were right. Maybe drinking's the problem. But then the color would slowly fade. And it would slowly fade, and it would slowly fade, and then eventually it was just dull. It was just dull. And emotionally, I just hated it. And eventually, I came to this conclusion that you guys meant well, but you were wrong. You didn't understand my case was different. I know to you it looked like alcohol was the problem, but you didn't understand that what happened to me when I quit drinking. When I quit drinking, I got worse. I didn't get better. I know I looked better to you, but I didn't get better. And eventually, it would always come to the same thing. And I kept drinking. Well, I came to AA thinking, well, I couldn't be an alcoholic because of my experience. And that first meeting didn't answer any questions because it was stupid like this, you know, parties and food and everybody talking and dressed up and stuff, and it was silliness, nothing about recovery. And then that second meeting I went to, Dick was there, and I was drinking coffee with him and not listening to a damn thing that was said. Participation meetings are a funny thing. There's a phenomenon that happens like this. So you're sitting in a meeting, and people are talking, and you start thinking to yourself, I wonder what I'm going to say when it gets to me. While you're thinking that, formulating the plan, you don't hear anything you guys say. So then it gets to you, and you say whatever it is you're going to say. And then you think to yourself afterwards, well, well, I wonder what if I would have said. And then you start thinking about what you wish you would have said. So you sit in there for a whole hour and you don't hear a damn thing. So, you know, they may be good for you to go to all the time and nothing else. But for me, I'd rather go to a speaker meeting once in a while and hear somebody. Well, at least I'm not thinking about what I wish I would have said. So, and my sponsor encouraged that when I was younger. Go to a book study, a speaker meeting, and then if you want to go to a participation meeting, and you can. So I've always done all that. But anyways, so I came to this third AA meeting, and I didn't know what I was going to do because I wasn't getting any answers here. Nobody was saying anything that made sense to me. But this guy, Mickey, that's on that board back there, he said in the meeting, and I thought it felt like he was talking to me, but he was just talking. He was just in a meeting giving a talk. And he said, if your problem's drinking, stop drinking, and your life should get better. Now, if you're new, listen to this. If your problem's drinking, stop drinking, and your life should get better. You don't need us if your problem's drinking. Because once you stop drinking, after a while, you get better. And you move on with your life. But after you stop drinking, said he, if your life gets worse, maybe we can help you. And that was the first time anybody had ever said anything in my life that I thought to myself, maybe they know how I feel. Maybe they know what's wrong with me. And that gave me some hope to come back to another meeting and stay. Now, I wish I was telling you I was a really good AA back then, like I am now. And I would have walked up to that man after the meeting and said, oh my God, you said something so wonderful, would you be my sponsor? But it didn't go like that. I had this real issue with God. I had this issue with people. I wouldn't hold hands with anybody in a meeting until I was 2 years sober. I damn sure didn't hug anybody, not even girls. I didn't want anybody putting their hands on me. And I don't know why, but I was just like that. And when people talked about God, it's like this wall went up. And I couldn't bring it down. For some reason, I had such a strong aversion to religion that I just couldn't hear it. And so I noticed the first couple of meetings, you guys circle up and say prayer. So I knew I was smart enough to stay by the door. So when your prayer started, I could scat. And that's what I did at that third meeting. I came by the door and you guys were circling up and I took off. Well, before I got to my truck, this guy, Mickey, he caught up with me and he said, hey, wait a minute there, kid. And I stopped and he said, do you have a sponsor? And I didn't even know what a sponsor was. And I said, no. He said, good, I'm going to be your sponsor. And that was okay with me because I didn't know what it was anyway. So he became my sponsor. But then he said the fatal phrase, do you believe in God? And I said, no. And if I have to, this won't work for me. Hi, Earl. I didn't see you slip in. He was late, but we're not going to pass the judgment. Anyways, Earl knows I'm kidding. I had lunch with him the other day. I tried to stick him with the bill, but he made me pay. So, anyways, he said, so do you believe in God? And I said, no, if I have to, this won't work for me. And he said, are you willing to believe in God if I can prove it to you? And I said, well, yeah, but you won't. And he said, that's good enough. And he got all excited. He was very happy I had this willingness. You AA people are very strange and very easily entertained in areas that I don't understand. So anyways, I thought, well, whatever. So he decided that I was going to have a home group. This was like a Sunday when I met him. So he decided my home group was Tuesday, and I was going to be there unless there was a death in my family, and it was mine. And I was going to be there early. And then I didn't like anybody. He used to say I was the angriest newcomer he'd ever seen come into AA. And he was 20 years sober when he started sponsoring me. And he said he'd never seen anybody come into AA as angry as me. And I'll tell you, Mark and Timmy and Mark that knew me back then, they knew. When I started drinking, man, there wasn't nothing nice about me anymore. I was a violent little bastard, and didn't matter. You could be 7 feet tall. I'd slap shit out of you, and I didn't care about your ass whooping. And you know, some people say that, but those guys were there with me, watching me take ass whoopings. So everybody got tired of drinking with me because they got tired of me getting ass whoopings because they had to keep getting involved in them. I was like 135 pounds, so I couldn't whoop anybody. But then I had a stage where I got, a little bigger and a little stronger and a little smarter and a little more experienced, and I could whoop somebody once in a while. But now I'm old, so that's why I'm nice, because I can't whoop nobody anymore. Marcy said that I'm nicer now, but that's why, because I don't want to get whooped anymore. Anyway, so I was the angriest newcomer you'd ever seen, he said. So when I got to my first meeting with him on Tuesday night, he made me the greeter. And you would think, why would you make the angriest person you'd ever met the greeter? And it was really a hard job for me. I mean, the first time somebody walked up, he told me, just say your name. My name's Mike Bennett. Welcome to the There's a Solution Group. That's the name of it. Welcome to the There's a Solution Group. That's all I got to say. And think about it like this. I'm saying, welcome to the There is a Solution Group. my name's Mike, and you go by, and then the next person, and so it went like that for a little while. But then after a while, I started getting okay with it. I started getting comfortable doing it. And then the funny thing is, I went to another meeting in town a week or two later after I'd started doing that, and somebody said, "Hey, aren't you Mike from the There Is a Solution group?" They had attended the group. Well, then I felt like I was somebody because somebody remembered me. So then I liked being a greeter, and you couldn't take that job away from me for nothing. I was a greeter until they swept me out of office and made me quit doing it. And then they made me like clean bathrooms or something. I don't know. But anyways, so he had me join a home group. And the reason I tell you about that is think about this. You think about all the people in this room and all of us making such a big deal out of our meeting. We have 30 solid years of this group being in play. And we have the most solid, everybody's a home group member here, shout out. Everybody's a home group member. Just shout out. Isn't this the greatest meeting in the world? Isn't it fantastic? You know what we do? Every Thursday, Anna puts out a group text for our home group list and says, dinner tonight at Prescott Junction and at 5. And then we comment all through the day, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there, and what we're going to talk about, what's going on. We just have the greatest day. Then we have dinner, and it's just wonderful. Then we come to the meeting, and we have our speaker, and then after our speaker, we all go home. And next week, we do it again. And we really have become like a family. And I'll tell you how that saved my life. I was a loner all of my life, and nothing anybody did ever made me feel part of anything. And Alcoholics Anonymous took that loner that I was, and they helped me understand what was wrong with the alcoholism, and then they made me join, well, they didn't make me really, they invited me to attend a home group and be part of it, and they started helping me heal. And as I was healing, I started learning things about what was wrong with me. And a few of us were talking about this earlier today. Emotional sobriety. You think about when you look at these steps, I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock because I know it's been a long night. Think about these steps. I don't care who you are, at some point, and there are some exceptions to this, so don't come up to me after the meeting and say, well, I'm on an exception, you won't argue with me, because I'm going to go home, I'm tired. But if you think about the first step, it says, admitted we were alcoholic. Now, what that means is, that we're powerless over alcohol. What that means is that I have lost the ability to control my drinking. So when I start drinking, something changed in me where I couldn't stop when I wanted to. Well, hell, I knew that was true when I was 16 years old on Mark's dad's ranch. We were out horseback one time, and some guy offered us a beer. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and he didn't have enough beer except for us to have one. Everybody had a beer except Bennett. And the reason I didn't have a beer, everybody thought I was being a good boy because I was the kid. It wasn't that at all. I knew if I had one beer out in those mountains, you would have to tie me to a chair to keep me from going to town with that horse and getting another beer. I knew there was something wrong with me when it came to that. Once I started, I just set off this uncontrollable thing inside of me. So I knew that way back then. So when I read that the first time, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, I said, well, that's no question. I didn't have any quite there. But that dash in that first step means end of one thought, beginning of new thought. So it's actually two separate things that have nothing at all to do with each other. Bill had this phobia about 12. It had to be 12 steps. So he piled a couple of them together here and there and spread a couple of them out here and there to try to get to his 12. But those two steps don't have anything to do with each other. Maybe we're powerless over alcohol. That's the end of that. The next thought is this, that our lives have become unmanageable. I don't think there's hardly anybody that's ever come into AA that has not had some debate in their mind over that like I did. Well, I had a place to live. I had 2 cars. I had a little money in the bank. Still had a watch. I was still married. You know, I get it that I'm inches and seconds from it all unraveling, but I'm kind of holding it together. Some debate. Well, then the AA people tell you, yes, but let me prove to you how your life's unmanageable. Let me tell you about how crappy this part is. And they try to drum it in your head what that means. But here's what I think Bill Wilson did. And I've read every piece of history and literature on Bill Wilson he's ever written, I think. And when I see him, I'm going to say this to him. I am going to. And I think he'll agree with me. I think what he meant, and he wrote about this for years and years in his later sobriety, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our emotions had become unmanageable. And when my sponsor said that to me, it changed everything for me. That our emotions had become unmanageable. That is why I needed to drink. Sober, I could not manage my emotions. I had fear, and I had anger, and I had lust, and I had jealousy, and all of these things going on that I couldn't seem to manage. But after a couple of drinks, they would all come together, and they would be fine. Yeah. But then I would get in trouble because that thing would set in where I couldn't stop. And I'd get in trouble and I'd stop drinking again, and then after a while, those emotions would get out of control. I think the second step really should say this, and I know somebody's gonna say that's AA blasphemy, because you can't talk about changing anything, but I don't care, because I got the microphone. I think the second step should say this. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to emotional stability. It's the only thing I ever wanted, and it's what alcohol did for me. It restored me to emotional stability. Mickey helped me understand that, and then he helped me understand if you will take these steps, even though you don't believe they will work, if you will just take the actions, I will prove to you in time that you can find some power greater than yourself, and that you can get your emotions manageable enough that you can stay with us and keep practicing. And as time goes on, they'll get more manageable enough where you can stay with us and keep practicing. And then before long, you're going to enjoy being sober. And then you may find a higher power. He said, for now, do you think I'm doing better than you? And I said, yeah. He said, congratulations, I'm your new higher power. And I actually was okay with that, because this whole fairy tale God that you goody two-shoes talk about, hang on to, couldn't grasp it. But I did what he said. After I wrote my fourth step, I went on a drive with him, and I shared my fifth step with him. And the hardest thing I'd ever done emotionally with another human being. I hadn't cried since I was about 9 years old, as I remember. And I was just a tough guy, and I grew up with tough guys, and you just had to be a tough guy. And I wasn't going to cry. I didn't give a shit what happened. I just wasn't going to do it. I was 26 years old, and I'm driving in the car with my sponsor, and he said, tell me about these secrets that you're not going to talk to anybody about. Just tell me what's going on. Nobody's ever going to know. I don't want to share it with anybody. And I told him about an experience I'd had when I was a kid, and it was the most embarrassing, degrading thing I had ever shared about myself, but I was so devastated that I had actually said it out loud to another human being that I broke down and I started crying, and I couldn't stop, and I was so ashamed of myself. And I'd look out the side window, but I couldn't look at him. You know, I'm looking out the window and I'm just crying. Finally, I gathered myself up and I peek over, see if he's still in the car. He was there. He was fine. He said, you know, that's, I understand that. It's very common. I've heard a lot of inventories, and very common. And there's many people in this room, shit, I don't know how many. There's a lot of people in this room made that drive with me. Northton has had that. We have to drive north when we do inventory, because Clancy said he drives south, it won't take. We drive north when we do our inventory. And so I looked over at him, and he said, no, that's not that uncommon. You know, I've heard a lot of people's inventories, and it's very similar to that. And matter of fact, I hadn't experienced some of that, and he shared his experience with me. And it changed everything in my life. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was just a useless, worthless piece of crap. I felt like maybe that I was okay. Maybe the things I'd been through were going to be okay. They weren't going to scar me for life. Maybe I had some hope. So then he said, what else you got? And I said, oh, well, you like that one. You listen. So I told him the next one, and it was the same thing. I just knew he was going to open the car door and push me out and drive away, and he did. He just shared an experience with me that was very similar. And so I kept talking with him about it. And then we got to the part of the inventory where he talked about resentments and fears and sexual conduct. And it seems to be talked about in AA for you newer people that, oh, this fourth step and this fifth step is so hard to write. I heard somebody today, might be in this room, said, been on their fourth step for months and months now, and I wanted to yell out, well, knock it off, goddammit, just do it. So I was telling Mickey about it, and he said, just make a list of everybody you're pissed off at. You can do that, can't you? And I said, yeah, you got a map of the world with circles on it, you know. He said, make a list of everybody you're pissed off at. Make a list of everything you're afraid of. And I'll tell you right now, I could make that list for every person in this room. I could make that list of fears, and I would be pretty damn spot on. I heard Lucy say something today that was a little different. I'll share that with you next time, but you said something that I thought was funny. I thought to myself, well, I've never heard that on a fear list. But the fear list is like this. I'm afraid I'm never going to have any financial success. I'm afraid I'm never going to have a good relationship. I'm afraid my kids will never talk to me again. I'm afraid that I won't stay sober. I mean, I could make that list because it's almost generic, that list of fears. Now, there's something every once in a while that's a little different, but Israel. So he said, just make a list of what you're afraid of. And he said on the third list, just write down all the things you did sexually you wish you wouldn't have done. It's just that simple. You know, you cheated on somebody. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I felt bad about it. Or, you know, we could go on and on. So he said, make those lists. So I had done that, and then in that car with him, he started talking with me about those things, and we established why they bothered me. And they bothered me for this reason. If you're new, Greg, could you do me a favor and slide that balloon that way a little so I can see the clock? Do you mind? Because I don't know what my sponsor.
2 minutes.
Okay. No, it's not 2 minutes. It's 11. It's 47 minutes. Anyways, so we established the thing that's wrong with me. Here's the thing I really got out of it. It took me some time to come to understand it. But the reason things we do bother us is because we are not bad people. We've been told and come to believe ourselves that we are bad people doing all this rotten stuff, and it's not true. The reason it bothers us is because we are really good people. Deep down inside, we're good people. But when we don't act like good people, we feel like crap. When we do crappy things, we feel crappy. But eventually, if we clean all that up, we get honest about it, we clean it up, and we start doing good things, very gradually we start to feel good. And we keep doing good things, and we feel gooder. And we do good things, and we feel goodest. And it just keeps going on and on and on. So that's what AA and the steps are about. It's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. And people complicate the shit out of it. The steps are very simple. I could summarize them like this. Begin the process of unending continued surrender. Begin the process of uncovering and discovering the truth about yourself. Begin the process of cleaning up the mess you've made of your life. And begin the process of helping God's kids for free and for fun. If you do that, no, that clock says 8 minutes, and you today do not have the stop sign. He does. Turn your phone off. But that's the summary of Alcoholics Anonymous, right there. Well, if that was enough, then everybody could just go through the steps with their sponsor and quit going to meetings, couldn't they? Let's just do those steps. We're going to go to the Navy, so I'm going to do the steps real quick, go to the Navy, and then I'll just go on with my life. Who needs AA after that, right? But it didn't work like that for people like us. I tried to get away from AA for a little bit. Shelley and I were, when we moved away from here in 05, and I've done the steps as much as anybody's ever done the steps. I get it. I mean, I understand. But when I moved away in 05, I was a big shot. I had a big old job, moved to a different town. My family was doing wonderful. The kids were growing up. We're starting to get grandkids. It was just wonderful. We had all kinds of money and stuff, and it was just lovely. And I decided when I got to Alabama, because I was always active like this, wasn't I, Jimmy? I decided I got to Alabama, I'm not going to be that active. I'm going to be like so many people I see in AA. I didn't realize most of them weren't that happy, but I'm going to be like the people I see. They show up at a meeting once in a while. They go to a meeting once in a while, and they share, and then they go home. That's about all they ever do. I never see them do anything else. I'm going to be like that because I was sober 13 years at that point. I thought, well, I'm going to be like that. So I went to Alabama, and I did that. I went to meetings a little bit late. And I stayed in the meeting. I didn't really do much. Might participate to try to look like I do something. And then I'd leave a little bit early. Didn't get to know anybody. Next week I'd go to a meeting in a different part of the town. So nobody got to know me. And I kept doing that. And after about a year of that, my wife was starting to notice that I was slamming doors again. And that I'd break a coffee cup once in a while. And I was losing my temper. And she said to me, you know, something's going wrong. And I kept doing that for about another year. And finally, depression set in. And after the depression, I started having suicidal thoughts. I was 14 years sober. My sponsor died, Mickey died. 14 years sober, and I was thinking about killing myself in sobriety. And I told Shelley about it. It devastated her. She had no idea that I was even capable of that. So I told her, and she was just torn apart. And of course, she started crying, I started crying. And I quit crying. And then she said, why don't you get a sponsor and start going to AA like you used to when you were happy? I just hate Al-Anons would not even have a program if it wasn't for us. Of course, they probably wouldn't need one. When I come back in my next life, I'm coming back at the Al-Anon because they can work the steps and drink too. Anyway, so I started doing that. I got Clancy to sponsor me, and I started going to meetings again. And I started getting active again, and I wasn't getting better. I wasn't very active. I wasn't getting better. And finally, I started sponsoring people again, and then I started getting better, and I realized there's something different wrong with me. It takes more work for me than it does for me. So then I called Clancy and I was talking to him about it. And I used to think that guys like me, like Oscar, like Greg, like Clancy, people that were active in AA, and John back there, people that were active in AA, and they were out on the front lines, and they sponsored a lot of people, and they were popular, I thought they were better AAs than the ones that didn't do any of that stuff. Turns out, with Clancy's help, I come to learn that we are sicker AAs. If I do what a lot of you do, I will get depressed, get suicidal, and want to kill myself in sobriety. It's not enough for me. I can't seem to find enough happiness like that. And I finally realized how sick I really am. It takes a lot more work for me to stay sober than it does for some of you. And for you new people, it may take a lot more work for you than it does for other people. So if you're watching other people skate around the edges of AA and not get dug in, and you think that's fine and you do it and you're miserable, stop doing that. You might be an alcoholic like me that needs more work. And I left Jim out, and he's very active in this, that I respect. You might need more work than other people like I do. We're not the better AAs that get all the attention. We're the sicker AAs that need more work. And when you do more work, you become more popular just because you're doing more work. Now, I want to say this. I love my sponsors. They've saved my life many times throughout my sobriety. But the people that I sponsor are the people who have really made the difference. Oh, damn, another active guy. See, we got all these powerhouse AAs, man. And my sponsor, and leave him out, but I might have to, have breakfast with him next week and explain myself. Anyways, the people I sponsor have saved my life, and they've taught me everything that I've ever needed to know about being happy. And he's telling me 2 minutes now. He did raise the thing. So here's what I would say to you if you're new, or even if you've been around a while and you're struggling. Ann made a good point. She was kind of being ready to be on the edge, and she got swept into our group, and it changed everything. And now she's happy again, and she's just a wonderful friend, a wonderful member of our group. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, do more. Just do more. And I forgot Tom and Sarah. Jesus, there's so many active good AAs in this group, aren't there? Just amazing.
Dan.
Huh? And I said Dan. You were thinking about what you were going to say at the next meeting. So if you're not happy doing what you're doing, do more. Do more. That would be my suggestion to you. Thank you.